Hello and welcome to this round 3 here at Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad. I'm Tim Willoughby here with Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we have some fantastic matches for you here. Hello and welcome to this round 3 of Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad here in Madrid, Spain. I'm Tim Willoughby here with Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and well, the players are ready. Let's head down to the feature match area for this, the final of the first draft at the Pro Tour. Hello and welcome to this round 3 of the draft in Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad. There we see our players just getting ready for this, the finals of their draft. There we see Martin Müller, the wunderkind from Denmark. He's already been a world team champion. He's played in the World Championships and has put up some fantastic numbers at the Pro Tour. His opponent in the finals of this draft, there we see him, Valentin Mackel from Austria. Another player who is really just the last few years that he's really started to break out on the Pro Tour, but with a fairly saucy deck here in this
Oh my God.
match.
He has the red-white deck you dream about. Only needs 16 lands. He's got Nahiri. He's got a curve of humans, including, by the way, 2 copies of Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yeah, Thalia's Lieutenant, an absolute fixture of constructed,
Yes.
so being able to play it in limited as well, very powerful. But Thing in the Ice from Martin Müller on the second turn, that's going to be a major road bump for what Valentin Mackel's trying to do.
Potentially. Yeah, and Martin did take a mull down to 5 before this game, but you were saying he did that in one of the previous rounds as well, and that his deck actually mulligans pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the blue decks have a little bit more card drawing available to them than some of the other decks in the format. But here we see, I mean, this the danger really of the mulligan. You can find yourself with just your one color available, which really hampers Martin's ability to do too much, though. By the looks of things, he is largely on blue spells in hand, too. Already a werewolf flip, though, for Valentin Mackel, meaning that he is able to get in some damage here.
2/2 Menace.
Yeah, Menace, one of those abilities that sort of, when you're already being aggressive, can really put the screws on your opponent. And there we can see that Valentin Mackel, just with a whole host of creatures available to him relatively soon. Inspiring Captain to pump his team has to be fairly tempting here. Getting in the early damage, given that he knows that his opponent is working off a suboptimal set of draws, just purely because he only started with 5.
Yeah, I mean, Menace and 4 power, so there are no good blocks there for Martin. He has to just bounce a creature.
Yeah, I mean, the tempo play, kind of what Martin Müller needs at this point. He's very happy to get counters off his Thing in the Ice. He's very happy to save a little bit of damage where he can.
At the same time, he's just down a card there. No zombies for the discard.
Yeah, Nibelus of Dusk, though, a nice one in this deck. It's not necessarily as aggressively a spells deck as some of the blue-red decks we've seen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A 2/1 flyer with prowess, absolutely just able to get through the kind of damage that Martin Müller is going to need, because the way that his deck is really going to win this game, if it does win this game, is in the air.
Yeah, it's interesting. We watched Martin draft this deck. It was really great to watch it. It looked like he did a good job. He's kind of riding the midpoint, though, between a blue flyer tempo deck and a red-blue spells deck. Thing in the Ice wants a bunch of spells. The flyers, though, have really helped him. It's interesting how he sort of found this, I think, sweet spot where he's got enough flyers to be able to attack and win games in the air, so that's really become plan A.
Senseless rage there being played out, and that's going to mean that even if Valentin Mackel does not have the necessary flipped, transformed werewolves, he's still going to be able to hit for a good amount of damage here. Not necessarily needing the madness, but when you use it with madness, oh boy.
Yeah, and Martin just does not have the spells he needs to trigger Thing in the Ice, which feels like kind of the only way he's going to get back in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Thing in the Ice definitely leaves Valentin Mackel with a little bit of a quandary. He can either choose to commit lots of creatures to the board and be very aggressive about getting damage through. But if he does that, then if Thing in the Ice does flip, then he's in trouble.
How about you just kill it with Lightning Axe? Does that work?
Yeah, I mean, Lightning Axe, if you're discarding a card that doesn't have madness, it can feel like you're 2-for-1ing yourself. But when Thing in the Ice is the thing that you're getting rid of, no pun intended, you're certainly happy to make that trade. And more big swings here from Valentin Mackel with Martin Müller on just 10 life. Rattle Chains came down all too briefly, able to secure the trade there, but Martin Müller taking the big hits here, down to just 4.
And the Missionaries to follow up.
Yeah, Abyssinian Missionaries, in this case, even without any equipment, not
Startled
a problem.
Awake this is the concession. This is Martin Müller giving up and saying, I would like to see 13 more cards from your deck. I'm going to lose, but I want some more information on my way out.
Startled Awake, an interesting card, and I kind of like some of the interactions that are in Martin Müller's deck for it, because he can use Startled Awake to transform, get it in play as a creature, but then he has things like compelling deterrence. He has things like he has bounce spells to mean that he doesn't have to connect when he gets this swing in following a Startled Awake, which potentially means that he's able to speed up his milling clock a little. But Persistent Nightmare, not good enough in this game. He's scooping them up. We will see what he's got for game 2. But before we head on to any more Magic, here are some messages. We'll be back very shortly.
Ultra Pro is the place to go for all your Magic accessories. With card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios showing off the best Magic art, Ultra Pro is the standard in safe storage. Visit ultrapro.com for more information. There's never been a better time to get into Standard. Set rotation and Shadows over Innistrad have altered the format's landscape dramatically. Blaze a new trail at Friday Night Magic. For more information, visit magic.wizards.com/FNM.
Hello and welcome back to this round 3 at Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad, the final round of our drafts here on day 1, and we're going to get a chance to get a quick look in while our players on our main match are shuffling up. Here we see on the back table, it's Park Jun-young from Korea up against Canadian Rich Hohen. Now Rich, very well known as being a drafter, he absolutely loves basically any 40-card deck, and he seemed pretty happy when I spoke to him before this tournament about the limited format. That kind of playing out here. Both these players also on 2-0, playing to win their pod.
Yeah, Rich has 4 Grand Prix wins. He has a 65% lifetime limited win rate, which is among the top players in the field at this Pro Tour.
And his deck leaning very, very heavily on an equipment theme. In addition to what we see in play there, he has extra copies of 3 copies of Strength in Arms in his deck. So he's going to be able to punch through a lot of damage with individual creatures and combat tricks. And we can kind of see that playing out just with the life total that Park Jun-young finds himself on here with his red-green werewolf deck.
Duskwatch Recruiter digging.
Yeah, so he gets to look at the top 3 and he can reveal a creature and put it in his hand. But that looks to be a swing and a miss there for him.
Wow. And Rich's Vigilant Inquisitor is the biggest creature around.
Yeah, Vigilant Inquisitor with cards in hand such that he can potentially even use combat tricks. I'm guessing that he's already shown Park Jun-young a few combat tricks at some point in this game.
Park Jun-young gets away with the double block, though. I think he was content to double block and not get blown out by a combat trick, but now, okay, here's Moorland Drifter.
Yeah, 3 copies of Moorland Drifter in this deck too. I mean, basically we have a very focused deck here from Rich Hohen. 3 Militant Inquisitor, 3 Moorland Drifter, 3 copies of Strength in Arms. He gets to basically play lots of the good cards and not have to worry too much about filler. And even though this Moorland Drifter does not have the human type, still quite happily equipped there.
Is it Byway Courier?
It is, and Park Jun-young now hellbent.
Yeah, he's been doing his best to dig with the Recruiter just to find creatures to throw in front of what Rich can muster.
Now, our main match has kicked off. We'll keep that in the top corner for you for a little bit here. We're just going to see whether or not Rich Hohen can put this one away before we jump back. But do not worry, if we see any big plays from that top corner, we will call them out to you and be able to jump back soon enough. At the moment, Rich Hohen kind of facing down the fact that Park Jun-young does have blockers. He's not able to continually get additional damage through particularly easily here.
Open the armory and doesn't find anything.
Is that purely to get closer to Delirium?
Yes. It got him Delirium. That Moorland Drifter has flying now.
That a very big game here in a situation where Park Jun-young really can't afford to be taking too many more attacks.
2 of them will kill him.
And things that we're learning here is that red-white in this draft format seems pretty powerful. We've got it in the finals of 2 different drafts here at the Pro Tour.
I'm learning that apparently I'm supposed to play Open the Armory. I have not played that card.
Yeah, I mean, I think that once you add in Delirium to the mix with the 3 copies of Moorland Drifter in Rich Hohen's deck, it looks a lot stronger, even if you don't necessarily have loads of things that you're fetching.
And Duskwatch Recruiter finds another ground creature. Can Park Jun-young deal with that Moorland Drifter? Because it's going to kill him next turn. Forest. Hinterland Logger. Rich Hohen gets it.
All right, well, with that, Rich Hohen picking up that game. We're going to get a chance to jump back to our main match now, that one being between Martin Müller and Valentin Mackel over on our main table. So Martin Müller, we saw him with a pretty suboptimal draw in game one for with his red-blue deck, having to start on 5 cards, not ideal. Meanwhile, Valentin Mackel, super-duper aggressive. And it looks like it's kind of the same sort of deal here, only this time Martin Müller does have lands.
It's interesting how we, as this first draft winds down, we've got our feature match final here. You see Rich Hoeing, Jerry Thompson playing to win his pot over there. There's a lot of aggressive decks in the feature match area right now. I mean, in terms of, Marcel and I were talking about this earlier this morning, in terms of this format being, the grindy sort of value, clue decks or what have you, versus the beatdown, it seems like it's edged to the beatdown deck so far this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that if in doubt being aggressive. If there's lots of build around the uncommons, it might feel a little bit tough if there is potentially a good aggressive deck available. I mean, even looking at Müller's deck, he's running Uncaged Fury and Rush of Adrenaline for the potential combo kill.
Yeah, he's the slowest deck in the feature match area, apparently, and he's got that combo finish.
An update from our back tables. Kentaro Yamamoto has taken game one against Jerry Thompson. We'll hopefully be able to get a bit of a look in on that one. Dan Lathia has also taken game one against Matteo Oneto over on our King of the Hill table. Yeah, if you're looking for a creature that's worth playing spells to pump up, Lava Hound has to be pretty much top of that pile. Just the casting of spells is like permanent prowess.
Love the Pyre Hound.
And then Pyre Hound also potentially getting double strike at some point could be a big deal. Yeah, Valentin Mackel with a little bit more to think about in this game than perhaps he had in game one. There he was pretty much doing his thing. But Martin Müller, one of his strengths, I mean, he's a young player on the Pro Tour, but he has a very sort of well-established playing face. There's not a lot to read from his expression based on how the game's going. If he's winning, if he's losing, if he's holding all combat tricks, if he's holding all lands, that visage is pretty much the same. And that means that, especially when you're trying to figure out what tricks to play and how to sequence your plays, it can be a little bit tricky to figure out the best option. But Abyssinian Mishery's immediately getting equipped there, and that meaning that we are going to see it transforming.
That's a good one.
Lunarch Inquisitors is all of a sudden a big threat for Valentin Mackel, and he's going to get a chance to exile a creature as it transforms. There we see it, the 4/4.
Tricky decision there. Does he want to get the 1/5 blocker out of the way? Like, no. This Pyre Hound can get way out of control if I leave that on the table. So.
Yeah, I mean, conveniently, the Inquisitors themselves are big enough that they can rumble through the Silent Watcher just simply because of the equipment that they're holding.
Good point.
Meanwhile, Unruly Mob kind of watches by the sidelines thinking, well, you know what? If a few creatures die, then maybe I'll get in the game. But for now, one of my buddies has got a Murderer's Axe, and that's a convenient madness outlet if he needs it, but also just a straightforward, powerful pump spell.
Wow, Muller's got the Rush Uncaged Fury combo, huh?
I mean, we may see a Senseless Rage with Madness here at some point if there is a big block that's going to make it worthwhile. As things stand, though, Mackel not really pressured into doing too much just yet. And Martin Müller having to play combat tricks on D, not exactly where he wants to be.
This is enough to take to the Missionaries, though, right? We're up to 6 power? Yeah.
At present, it is.
But Ravenous Berserker suddenly wants to be 3/1.
Yep, hungry for spells, finds the enchantment, and that enough for a pretty big blowout set of attacks and blocks there. Killing 2 creatures, also getting a spell out of Martin Müller's hand. This is going to be a tough one for the Dane to come back from.
Valentin Mackel's deck is great. I mean, we watched Martin draft his, and I think 2/1 is a reasonable result for him. I mean, the deck, you can imagine that deck winning, but you look at this deck that Valentin has put together, he hasn't even drawn his good cards. There's a Nahiri in this deck. There's 2 Thalia's Lieutenants in this deck. I mean, the Missionaries is obviously a very good card, but I mean, he's winning with just like the curve of creatures up into Inspiring Captain. Yeah, this deck looks great.
So Jace's Scrutiny basically there to save a little bit of damage. Unfortunately, he's still taking quite a bit here.
And he went ahead and immediately sacrificed the clue to see if he could come up with anything else that would help him in combat.
I mean, Jace's Scrutiny kind of exactly where the red-blue spells deck wants to be. It's a good cheap spell that you can cast all of the time. I mean, some of the time it's drawing you cards immediately. Some of the time you can hold back on it. And there's the handshake. Martin Müller, you know, he knows when he's beaten, and that enough for Valentin Mackel to get the clean 3-0 in this first draft of the Pro Tour. We will have a second draft, but that will be tomorrow morning. For now, though, both these players will be thinking about their constructed decks. So there we see our feature match area. We're going to get a chance to jump across and see a little bit more Magic soon enough.
That Jerry Thompson-Kentaro Yamamoto match looks pretty tasty. I can't quite tell where they are. Oh, great. We're going to head right there. This is actually a green-white mirror.
Interesting. This is one of the decks that BDM has been championing a lot in our coverage drafts.
The human synergies are strong in this deck.
And we see that there's another Abyssinian missionaries there, although this time without any equipment. But Toppelgeist at some point threatening something fairly scary should Delirium happen for Jerry Thompson on the right of our screen. Meanwhile, Kentaro Yamamoto has one of the key human synergy cards for green-white there. He's going to be able to potentially give double strike to his creatures, or his humans at least. And with a couple of other ones on the board, this could be problematic for Jerry Thompson, who's on just 5 life.
Wow, Jerry's deck looks great looking at it on paper. I'm a little bit surprised to see him down a game and behind here. I look at this list. He's got a Declaration in Stone. He's got 2 copies of Tenacity, which might be one of my favorite combat tricks just ever. All my guys untap and get bigger and get lifelink. You usually wind up winning a bunch of combats and gaining a ton of life. But Jerry at this point, couple planes in hand, couple not the best creatures in his deck in play.
Yeah, I think Veteran Cathar has the potential to just sort of take things over a little bit here, given that Kentaro Yamamoto has both creatures, time, and mana to use it with.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure.
Yeah, the aim high that's in Yamamoto's hand, not super duper relevant here at the moment. I can't imagine he's all that afraid of Toppelgeist. But I guess that while Toppelgeist's around, that may well be the best creature that he can hit, because any other flyer that's coming along, given the option of what to sacrifice, well, the 1/1's probably the choice. Yamamoto already a game up here, just looking to lock things up. I mean, this is, bear in mind, he's had significant success at the World Championship. Jerry Thompson kind of just getting back into things after a stint working at Wizards.
Right. Yeah, Jerry with 38 Pro Tours previously. This is number 39, so he's played a lot of Pro Tours, but only a couple recently as he gets back in, as you said. 1 top 8 from all those. 10 GP top 8s for Jerry with a couple of wins. But then, yeah, Yamamoto 3 Pro Tour top 8s from 22 starts.
That Cathar's Companion, a solid 3-1, but without any spells in hand, it is going to be dying in any of these fights. Just a couple of lands in hand for Jerry Thompson. And Yamamoto, quick to give double strike to pretty much the most important creature on the board at the moment in that Veteran Cathar. There we see it. It's quite an expensive cost, but double strike, just such a powerful ability, even before you start worrying about any additional pump spells. Jerry Thompson losing some of his board there, but conveniently enough, not losing all of his life. Down to just 2, though. He's absolutely going to need to draw something solid, and that's not good enough. There's the handshake. Kentaro Yamamoto wins against Jerry Thompson, 2-0. So we can see on the back table there, it looks like Richie Hohen's match also completed there. So just the 1 match left in our feature match area, and that is King of the Hill. So we've had a chance to see a little bit of Dan Lathier's deck in the last round, but against Mattia Oneto of Italy, we see something a little different. On the face of things, this looks like a mono-red deck from Oneto. We actually know that he is a red-green deck, so this perhaps a slightly stilted draw from him. Noteworthy again, though, red-white in the finals of another draft. All of a sudden, I can't help but think that our coverage drafts this evening might be a little bit skewed. Red-white kind of on a rough side of things here for the other side of things.
Mono-red good enough.
Mono-red good enough. There are 8 forests in Mattia Oneto's deck, so I'm not quite sure how mono-red he really is, but certainly on the board it's hard to argue with what you can see. There are a couple of Sanguinary Mages, and yeah, that card that's being read there, a fairly big one to keep in mind. Gold Knight Castigator, Swings in for a huge amount of damage, but at the same time, really threatens the game to end fast one way or another, because if sources are dealing damage to Mattia, that damage is doubled.
So Apothecary Geist hits for 8 now?
Maybe more. I mean, Gold Knight Castigator is a little bit of a gamble always.
Absolutely.
Normally when you play it, you think, well, I'm so far ahead that this is just a great creature that's very difficult for my opponent to kill. 9 toughness is a lot.
Oh, geez, and he could just move the Bound by Moonlight over onto it. Now you don't have the advantage of the dragon-sized flying attacker, but you still suffer the drawback.
Yeah, Mattia here, I mean, he had to do something. I mean, his draw, ultimately not ideal. You can see there he's got 2 green cards in hand, no forests in play. Certainly made sense to go for the Castigator at the point he did, desperately trying to get those final 6 points through. But
agreed. Yeah, he's fought a good fight this game, despite being color screwed. First Pro Tour, by the way, for Matteo Oneto. 19-year-old from Italy. Got in from an RPTQ.
And the Italian RPTQs often absolutely colossal. Just a huge amount of PPTQs run over there. So then they're really a tough field to work your way through. So congratulations to Mattia there. And obviously lovely for him to get into the feature match area here on the King of the Hill table. You sit down at your first Pro Tour and see the last Pro Tour champ in your pod, you think, this could be pretty rough. Unfortunately, rough it has been for him, even though he did make it to the finals.
Still 2-1.
Dan Landia getting the 3-0, though, in his draft, 2-0 in this particular match. We will see him at the King of the Hill table for the constructed rounds.
So I had to draw another card from the clue, and it was a top one.
But just so you know, that was the last of the draft matches that we saw, and I'm beginning to piece together a few pictures of things that I'm going to be looking to try. I mean, something that is interesting to me, that I do love a Durdley deck, and if honest, that's kind of what I've been drafting. But wow, when you want to be aggressive in this format, you really can be.
No, it's a great point. I think that so many people have had so much fun putting those sort of slow decks together. You've got the uncommon build around me, and those decks can be great. It's just tricky that some of these aggro decks are capable of just winning faster and just sort of running over the top of them.
Yeah, but I mean, these players, yeah, they've been putting on a great show. I mean, we've got our audience here watching a little bit. At the Pro Tour itself, we have a little area where players are able to watch things, and we can see.
Sounds awesome.
We can see all of our players there.
Skycam again, love it. Oh, there's John down there.
Yeah, John Finkel.
He's
still
2-0.
just getting a little ruling, so yeah, he wants to make sure everything goes properly for him. We can see plenty of great players still battling away here. This kind of the tense moment, because the difference between finishing your draft 3-0 and 2-1, at least psychologically, potentially huge. Just going into those constructed rounds, and you're already in the best possible shape you can be in.
Fair.
We are going to have a break before our constructed rounds start, the Pro Tour lunch break. But in that, do not worry, do not move away. We have plenty for you to watch. There's going to be a few nice little tidbits shared with you about things that you can enjoy in relation to Magic's all soon enough. But yeah, we can see all sorts of players there still battling away. Bram Snetvangers up against another member of Team Psy Games there. We saw Kentaro Yamamoto winning in his feature match area, but that team strong and deep. But yeah, we gradually wrapping things up here in round 3. I would say that the interesting thing to me, I mean, we saw lots of powerful red-white decks, but I mean, if we look at Valentin Mackel's deck, we know that he had powerful rares. That's fine, and like, there'll always be some powerful rares at every draft. What excited me, though, was just his regular standard cards just cracking in and getting it done. Not necessarily something that, in some formats, the rares can really sort of step in and change the whole face of things. But as it turns out, you can just be aggressive if you want to.
Yeah, I think the combat tricks are a lot of the key to that. I think Rush of Adrenaline is super powerful.
Absolutely.
Confront the Unknown, those sort of one-mana tricks, because so many of the creatures in the format are sort of 2/2s and 2/3s, and they're all within sort of 1 power and toughness of each other. Those combat tricks just allow you to attack, combat trick to kill the opponent's blocker, and now if you can also drop another creature, you just get, you can tempo them out. You can get far enough ahead to just steamroll them despite what their late game synergy is.
Yeah, lovely stuff. The short powerful spells getting there in our feature match area. But that is the end of this round. We're going to head things back across the news desk where Rich Hagan can bring you everything that's been going on this round.
Well, maybe not quite everything, but we do have lots going on here during the lunch break. Players getting ready to move from that 40-card format of Shadows over Innistrad draft into the 75 format, 60 cards in your main deck, 15 cards in your sideboard for brand new standard. And whispers around the venue suggest that there are a ton of decks that have not been debuted yet. So if you've been watching various tournaments over the last couple of weeks and thinking, okay, Bant Company, that's what new standard's about. Well, yes, there's a big target on that deck's back, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but there are lots of new decks coming your way over the next 5 rounds of standard, which will begin in just a little bit. But we have a ton coming your way, as I say, during the lunch break. In a little while, two terrific guys, Nate Holt and Sean Kornhauser. Now, if you think, I know the names, but I'm not quite sure who they are. Well, they're the creative team behind Walking the Plains that I know so many of you enjoy at Pro Tours and Grand Prix around the world. Well, they've been working on a project called Enter the Battlefield. We'll be talking to them at the back end of lunch. Also, we're going to set the scene for standard for you. Randy will be here to walk you through particularly the Shadows over Innistrad cards that may well be making an impact in the 60-card format. But before we do that, as we do at every Pro Tour, we have the chance to go inside the hallowed halls of Wizards of the Coast. And that gave us the chance to talk to the designers, the artists, the developers who actually put Shadows of Innistrad together from the ground up. So we return to R&D, we return to Innistrad. It's time for part 1 of Inside R&D. Welcome to Inside R&D. I'm your host, Rich Hagen. Take my hand, and together we'll explore the dark and dangerous mystery that lies at the heart of Shadows over Innistrad.
Okay, so we're going back to Innistrad.
Innistrad is Magic's take on Gothic horror. It's a world of dark, dangerous things lurking in the shadows, ready to consume your body, blood, or soul.
As a creative, Innistrad is a ton of fun. It's probably just the moodiest of all the planes we have to play with.
Some members of the Shadows over Innistrad design team had worked on the original Innistrad, and some weren't even with the company at the time. But everyone knew what Innistrad was, what it meant, and was just in the world immediately.
So one of the things that we wanted to do was, when last we left, Avacyn had been restored. Things were going to be great again. But when we went back, we knew that we didn't really want to revisit Avacyn Restored. We wanted to revisit Innistrad. That's what people really had fallen in love with, and that meant things couldn't be good. When things are good, that's not Innistrad at its best.
So to make the plane feel different this time, we wanted the angels to sort of be the bad guys, so we needed them to kind of have a slant where they go mad. So our white angels from previous Innistrad now are turning red in some kind of overzealous rage where they're smiting anything that could be evil and not necessarily everything that is evil.
It would be cool to see Avacyn in almost any color, but to see specifically Avacyn turn from very orderly, very protective, very defensive, very balance-oriented in white to flip and be just the polar opposite in red. Like that conflict, the order and chaos conflict, is central to Magic, and it was central to Avacyn's character development. It took a lot of effort and there was a lot of iteration, but as soon as each individual element got locked in, eventually it made a cohesive package. But like, it didn't come out as just, oh, here's what it does top down. Like, there were a lot of cards that came out of just a single concept and it was sold. And in design, this sometimes referred to as brain to print. Like, someone says it, came out of their brain, makes it all the way to print. But Avacyn it was important to look at each individual ability and have it make sense as a whole package. And the process was a lot of fun to watch it come to fruition.
Planeswalker design is incredibly challenging. They have a ton of moving pieces, it's very numerical. They are obviously intended to hit high-level constructed play. So in the past, they have been just created by the development team. Now, we're looking at a more cooperative approach where a specialized mini-team made up of a designer, a developer, and a creative team rep get together and forge the initial designs that eventually become the polished planeswalkers that we print.
We knew we wanted to do a mystery story, and the idea is, okay, we have the Gatewatch. Who in the Gatewatch made the best sense to lead a mystery story? Well, how about the guy obsessed with information? Like, here's the guy, Jason. The key to Jace's character is he's somebody who wants to know everything but can't. He doesn't even know his own past. So, like, he's the perfect person. Like, no one would obsess on a mystery like Jace. And so he was the perfect protagonist.
Jace's ultimate does something that normally a Planeswalker can't do. Because a Planeswalker's loyalty abilities are usually at sorcery speed, normally they can't counter a spell. Jace is sort of the ultimate blue mage. It's kind of weird that he's never been able to counter spells before. And this makes an emblem that allows you to counter the first spell your opponent casts each turn. So it allows Jace to finally do the major blue thing that blue gets to do, which is counter spells, and I think it's pretty awesome.
Innistrad is really a homecoming for Sorin. This is the place where he's from. This is where he's got so much history. Obviously, he created Avacyn. And we knew this version of Sorin really had to be kind of the biggest version of Sorin. This is the version that he's gone out, he's looked for Ugin, he has come back to find his home really just kind of ripped apart and destroyed, literally just ripped apart and destroyed. And he's kind of out for revenge. He is kind of gotten himself as strong as he can, and he's looking to, punish whoever has done this.
So Nahiri is a character we've seen glimpses of, little glimmers, stories. We've seen her on the Magic website, in the fiction. We've seen her in a past Commander set. But this is the first time you get to see her in a booster release in Shadows over Innistrad, and she's not happy. We saw her last time, she was mono white, she was this great lithomancer making weapons, but this time around she's out for vengeance. She has corrupted Sorin's manor, she has caused some deep stirrings on the plane, and really, she's up to kind of no good. What no good? You'll have to wait to find out.
The most fun part about Nahiri, I think, is her ultimate. We can't talk about that yet, can we?
Back in original Innistrad, we actually made a werewolf planeswalker. And what happened was the creative team at the time said, oh, wait, you're going to make a double-faced planeswalker? Oh, Garrick gets cursed, that's perfect. Let's use Garrick. I'm like, okay, well, it was cool to make a werewolf planeswalker. We're like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. So we made Garrick, we had him get cursed, and we made that card. So when we came back to Innistrad, they're like, remember that werewolf planeswalker? That might be interesting.
Arlen Cord was a bit of a challenge. We've done quite a few red-green planeswalkers in the past, and so making sure that she felt different from Xenagos and Domri Raid and people like that was a bit of a challenge, but it was pretty clear that once we were going to do a werewolf planeswalker that it wouldn't be too hard to make her different. So she could be a human on one side and a wolf creature on the other. We wanted her to feel like she was leading a pack of werewolves, so she made wolf tokens. And we wanted her to be unique among werewolves in that she can control her transformation. So she's not a slave to the phases of the moon or however many spells you've cast, but she gets to decide when she transforms into a wolf or back into a human.
Odric, had his card, and people loved that card. And Odric was this close to getting killed. We were like, is Odric gonna die in this next episode? When we go back to Innistrad, does something happen to him? And the sort of unanimous vibe was like, no, Odric's awesome. We gotta keep him. So Olivia Valdarin, people love her. She had this awesome illustration. She's this wicked, cool vampire. So yeah, there's a lot of love for these characters. Sigarda, super awesome angel. Everybody wants to know more about her. So we have a limited number of cards. We have a limited number of spaces, and we're so anybody who gets a card has a lot of love in the company. We really, to actually pay that off on a card means that we want the fans to know more about this character. We want the fans to play with it.
We pick up the story of the Gatewatch directly after Zendikar, with Jace arriving here looking for Sorin Markov. He has some unanswered questions about the Eldrazi on Zendikar, and Ugin has pointed him in this direction. So he shows up in a world that has started going crazy again, with Avacyn back, things were okay for a while, but now the angels seem to have turned against the humans they were supposed to protect. So that's the world in which Jace finds himself, and the context for his search for Soren.
One of the things that's really changed when we made the big pivot to the two-block world was we really doubled down on story. We really wanted story not just to exist, but be ingrained in the set, in the cards in a very visceral way. So one of the things we started doing with Battle for Zendikar is what we call pivotal moments. That there are 5 cards that show the main beats of the story, and that they're represented on the cards, so you can see the story through the cards themselves.
The first pivotal event where we are shining the story spotlight is the Madness of Avacyn, where we see the backdrop of the world as it stands now, the angels having turned on humanity in their wrath as they try to purge the sin from the world. Apparently, at least that's how Avacyn's church is understanding their actions.
Declaration in Stone was a total home run in terms of design, development, and creative, and it was something where you look at a pivotal event, and the magic card that represents that pivotal event matters. Where this is Nahiri going to Soren's home, not his home plane, his actual home, and imprisoning his bloodline in stone. And it just says, I was here, here's what I've done, this is the power that I wield. You need to deal with me on my terms. The card is very powerful, it uses a lot of set mechanics, and it let us do something that, like, we saw the art, we saw the concept, we heard what creative was going to do with it, and to be able to put that on a magic card was a lot of fun.
The card Epiphany at the Drown Yard reflects Jace's arrival at the coast of Nephalia at this Drown Yard, and of course he has an epiphany there. And what he finds is kind of after a long string of investigations that he has done on the plane, he finds that something is amiss. He sees this ring of cryptoliths, all pointing in this one direction. He's been following cryptoliths from across the provinces of Innistrad to this one point. It is crackling with energy. Angels are wheeling above this whole thing, and zombies are trudging through the water to create this thing. And for Jace, he realizes that it's bending the ley lines of the plane. These cryptoliths are bending the ley lines of the plane to this focal point. In the piece Avacyn's Judgment, we see this conflict between Avacyn on one side, this imposing figure that was once this guardian angel, now kind of bearing down on Jace and Tamio. It's this wonderful piece of art, and it reflects the moment in the story where Jace and Tamio have kind of tracked all of these mysteries to this place, Thraben Cathedral, and it is here that Avacyn confronts them.
We learned previously that Avacyn was made by Soren Markov as a way to maintain a predator-prey balance between the vampires and the humans of this plane, which didn't win him any friends among the vampires. So in this story, Soren is grappling with the ramifications of what he's done. She's kind of upsetting that balance at this point. And he is forced at the end of the story to undo his act of creation.
There's one thing I would say Shadows of Innistrad has gotten right more than anything else. It really is the flavor and the world that's going on here. I think more so than most sets we do, Shadows is a great melding of great stories that play fun, of great creative that really is being highlighted on all the cards, and just a whole atmosphere that really draws you in and gets you excited about playing Magic.
And you can tune in for much more from Inside R&D both tomorrow, Saturday, and indeed during our Top 8 on Sunday. Make sure you clear the decks for the weekend. We've got great stuff coming your way. So, results coming in, as you can see on your screen. There's still a few minutes left in the final round of draft action. And some of the Hall of Famers are doing tremendously well. By my record, 1, 2, 3. I see 4 Hall of Famers at 3-0. They are John Finkel. Johnny Magic himself has a perfect 3-0 draft record. Also at 3-0 from the Hall of Fame from the Netherlands, Jelge Wiegersma. Bram Snetvangers was doing very well early as well. Not sure about his final standing in draft. Ola Rada, 20 years after winning Pro Tour Columbus in 1996, he is at 3-0 from Team Eureka. And then not Steve Rubin, but Hall of Famer Ben Rubin is 3-0. Some other 3-0s for you. Jeremy Dizani, the Pro Tour Theros champion, has a perfect draft morning. So does Platinum Pro Jason Chung. World number 2, Seth Manfield, has got to 3-0 as well. So has a limited specialist, I know a lot of you follow him and watch his streaming, Neil Oliver. Now, if names are anything to go by, well, Yuya Watanabe, he's obviously great. Shuhei Nakamura, obviously great. Well, you'd probably name your child Yuya Nakamura. Somebody did that, and Yuya Nakamura is 3-0 right now. So well done to him. Meanwhile, the world number 1, Owen Turtenwald, was at 0-2 this round and had to win just to get off the mark in draft. He did, and that brought him to 1-2. But nonetheless, that is not the morning that Owen Turtenwald would have expected, and nor would Reed Duke, who also fell to 1-2 coming out of draft. So they've got lots of work to do. They've handicapped themselves against most of the field as we head into the standard rounds. Well, Matej Zatlkai is part of Team Eureka. He's also part of our coverage team, and it's great to see that he is in action once again here at the Pro Tour. And right now, he is out on the floor with our own Brian David Marshall.
Thank you, Rich. I'm here with Matej Zatlkai of Team Eureka. Matej, you are playing in this tournament, obviously to win the tournament and to do well, but you're also playing in a little sub-tournament with some other players to be the limited master, which carries an invite to the World Championship. There were 5 players tied coming into this tournament. How did you do through 3 rounds of draft today?
I did lose my first round, unfortunately, but I did go 2-1 overall.
Okay, so you are all, I believe everyone else other than Thiago Saporito lost at least 1 match. Thiago Saporito 3-0. 3-0 here to go into the lead for Limited Master. Explain to people how hard it is to, it's like, well, it's just 12 rounds of draft over 2 Pro Tours. That 10-2 could lead Limited Master. How hard is 10-2 at the Pro Tour?
Insanely hard, especially if one of those results is a 6-0. I think those are like really hard to get, and just doing an average 5-1 in everyone is very, very hard because, like you saw, all the pods here today were just super stacked with lots of quality players. So going 3-0, 2-1 in a Pro Tour is super impressive.
Well, surely no one ever goes 6-0 at a Pro Tour.
Well, they do, of course. There's always a couple people like me last time. But yeah, I mean, can't 6-0 this time around, but 2-1 is, I'm very happy about 2-1. But I have to hope to 3-0 the next one and hope that Thiago loses a match.
All right, Matej, good luck in the Limited Master, good luck at the Pro Tour, and good luck to the team. Sending it back to Rich at the desk.
Thanks very much to Brian David Marshall and Matej Big Z Zatlkai. Some more players at 3-0, perhaps players you won't know as much about. From the A's, from Argentina, Luis Salvato has advanced to 3-0. That's a terrific morning's work for him. Anthony Lee of Australia is 3-0. Also from France, Damien Mas played in Pro Tours before and now with a perfect record in the morning. So too from Japan is Yuki Ichikawa. Now, that is someone you do not want to give a head start to. We mentioned Owen Turtenwald and Reed Duke at 1 and 2. Ichikawa going to be one of round about 50 players with a perfect 3-0 draft score as we head into standard. Talking of which, it is time to turn our attention away from the 40-card format to 75. And yesterday, Randy Buehler came here to the news desk, and we had a chance to sit down and try and mark your card for all the cards, particularly from Shadows over Innistrad, that we think are going to be really meaningful players in the new standard format. But it's not just about what's new, it's about what's still here. And most of all, maybe, it's about what's gone away, because there's a ton of great stuff that just ain't around anymore in Standard. Take a look.